Yep, this is going to be a fiery one. Here's the deal. The state of New York is suing Valve over loot boxes. Maybe someone in the New York Attorney General's office is a CoffeeZilla fan. Maybe they saw our videos on how Valve's rather staggeringly big Steam Marketplace revenue is in some places built on gambling and targeting kids and all of those kind of grey market things that happen off platform but do contribute to the platform. It's spooky stuff, though looking at the view counts, I think they probably saw CoffeeZilla, not us. But regardless of what prompted them, the legal minds running one of the wealthiest states in the world has just decided to take legal action against Valve. I'm going to start us off back in 2016 because there's something that happened back then that you need to know. Valve was accused by the Washington State Gambling Commission of facilitating skin gambling via the Steam platform. Now that did not go anywhere. But around the same time, an individual tried to sue Valve and these gambling sites on a similar basis. And that also got struck down, because legally speaking, it was just a mess. But it did prompt Valve to issue cease and desist letters to some of the skin gambling sites. And that's something you really need to keep in mind for this story. With that said, we're now going to leave 2016, and we're going to go to now 2026, and the state of New York taking a run at Valve. And here's the thing, this time, they're going with a different legal approach. According to this new lawsuit filed by the New York Attorney General, Valve is promoting and operating illegal gambling within their state, targeting citizens but explicitly children through the loot boxes that power their biggest games: Counter-Strike, TF2, and Dota 2. And as of the time of writing and recording this video, Valve has not responded to or commented on the lawsuit or what it claims. Now, New York wants Valve to stop promoting and operating gambling in their state. They want Valve to pay back any money made from impacted New Yorkers, to pay damages, and to pay the state a fine of 3 times whatever it is they've gained from these illegal practices. Now, this, of course, all comes down to how the Attorney General's office interprets gambling. That's something that is, in most cases, illegal within that state without a license. Now you might be wondering, why are CSGO skins so spicy but sports betting and prediction markets are a thing that you can't access within New York? Well, that's actually because those are, perhaps unfortunately, federally protected. For their money, Valve's loot boxes, the ones that you pay to open for a random reward, fit the bill of gambling, and that's why they're plowing ahead with this one. And according to them, charging an individual for a chance to win something based on luck alone is quintessential gambling, which is prohibited under New York's constitution and penal law. Now, of course, loot boxes are not new to legal trouble. And beyond Belgium and the Netherlands, the FTC's actions against Genshin Impact in January 2025 was pretty much the peak of US intervention on this issue so far. And that settlement meant that loot boxes in that game could not be sold to under 16s without parental consent. But it's actually not the loot boxes alone that have given the New York lawyers their confidence here. No. It's the context. It's how these loot boxes work within Valve's ecosystem. Now, Valve have modified their systems for legal reasons before. Things like letting players see inside loot boxes and change rewards. They did that to dodge legal complaints in territories like the Netherlands. They've done other things in other places, like geo-locking in certain territories. But the thing about this lawsuit is it actually goes quite a bit further than that. I'll be real, if you don't want to code or you don't like games, skip this. But if you're still here, then that's good, because it means today's sponsor, Boot.dev, was built specifically for how us gamers actually learn, and that's actually more relevant than ever. Now, Boot teaches back-end development. That's the kind of thing that lands you 100k plus jobs, and they do it through a proper 12-month program structured like an RPG. Leaderboards, achievements, a Discord that actually helps. Over 750,000 students who have completed 33.7 million lessons, which is wild. And that's covering tech like Python, TypeScript, and Go, all from the fundamentals up. There's projects, there's modules, and the likes of actually using Git properly. It is fantastic. Now, my perspective in this is I did a BEng computer science, focused more on C++ and C#, kind of game engine-y stuff. Completely different world to web dev, which is why I also need Boot. And their teaching approach, I can say, is incalculably better than the way it was done at university. And here's the thing. The AI tools are everywhere now, your cursors, your Claude codes, but they're only as good as the person who's using them. Boot teaches you the fundamentals that separate serious engineers from vibe coders who just ship security nightmares. Really, they do. And their new training grounds feature even generates personalized problems based on what has challenged you when you've been using Boot, all with spaced repetition baked in. It's seriously gigabrain, and you can get 25% off your first purchase at boot.dev/Bellular News. You'll save the most using the annual sub, and of course, if you're not happy, they'll refund you on the spot. So here's the core of the lawsuit, right? Say you buy a key, you open a loot box, and you win a rare skin. That skin now has a price, and it doesn't have a price because Valve says it has a price. It has a price because other people, other players, will pay for it. Some skins actually appreciate like assets. Are we going to start securitizing our gaming skins? Is this the dream that the NFT people had? But yeah, some of these do actually appreciate like assets. People speculate on their value the way that sometimes people will speculate on stocks. You can list your skins on the Steam marketplace where Valve will take a 15% cut of every sale, or you can use your trade URL. Now, what's core here is that's a feature built right into Steam, and you can use that trade URL to move that skin to a third-party site, and on that third-party site, you can sell it for actual cash. Now, here's the thing. Valve did not build those third-party sites. Third-party, right? It's obvious. But according to this lawsuit, Valve built the pipe that makes them work. They built the infrastructure that makes them work. So between the key sales that are needed to generate these skins in the first place and the various marketplace cuts, Valve is making money at almost every point of the chain here, and it is billions of dollars. Now that alone would suggest that Valve is implicitly supporting the third-party skin trading sort of grey market ecosystem, because it does run off their trade URLs, and Valve does just let it happen. But here's the thing, right? This lawsuit's framing actually goes deeper than saying it's implicit. They claim that Valve has explicitly permitted these sites to operate in spite of saying the opposite during prior legal proceedings. The New York AG alleges that Valve draw a very specific line: skin gambling, which they publicly oppose, versus skin selling, which they quietly support. And the suit cites internal communications and employee statements where Valve's official policy says one thing, but then their action says another, while simultaneously enforcing against gambling sites, blocking accounts, sending cease and desists, but leaving the marketplaces untouched. And here's one example. In 2017, a professional Counter-Strike player asked Valve's attorney about setting up a skin gambling site. Valve said no. But when the same player asked about setting up a marketplace instead, just buying and selling skins for cash, well, they didn't have many restrictions, they said, other than the prohibition against gambling. And then there's the other angle, and that is protecting children. If you've ever watched a Counter-Strike case opening, you'll know the spinning wheel. It slows down, it teases a near miss and something valuable, and it lands on a cheap skin that's worth like 2 pennies. You know, classic slot machine design, which the lawsuit here is using as evidence. And for most tiers, they are kinda right, but they did make a mistake. They screenshotted a gold example from a stream. Now, gold items don't near miss. If gold shows up in the wheel, you will be getting it. Valve changed that years ago, and basically, this is a sloppy example in an otherwise serious filing, and defenders are already using it to discredit the entire thing. Now, I'm not going to take an overarching position on the lawsuit, but to say that this one sloppy example torpedoes the whole lawsuit is just not realistic. And if you were to believe that, then I don't think you'd have an accurate picture of what's actually going on with this story. Because the psychological tools are still real, they are still there. And the lawsuit lays this out explicitly, saying that the mechanics Valve uses to keep players opening cases are the same ones that casinos use to keep people pulling levers. There's always, of course, a chance the next box will be the one you pull gold from, and the entire ecosystem of case opening streams, content that is literally nothing but just opening loot boxes, that is entertainment built on gambling mechanics. But the lawsuit does hit harder given who is playing these games, because children make up a significant portion of Valve's user base. Now, the lawsuit cites one case where an adult had to intervene on behalf of an 11-year-old whose items had been stolen. But Valve's policies don't permit users to be under 13, so should they have been allowing this? That's a bit strange. But this is also where it gets uncomfortable for players, and I think you may know what's coming here. Could this finally be the thing that forces ID verification onto Steam? Thus far in the video, there's a P word I haven't brought up, but I'm gonna do it now. Yes, I'm going to bring politics into your video games. Obviously, there's a bit of a political context here, and the public announcement of this lawsuit leans into old, tired arguments about violence in video games, and it ties that to the same child protection framing, which, you know, we've been over this many times before. But as much as that is very frustrating public messaging, that argument does not actually appear in the lawsuit itself. Just the damage from gambling. That's the thing that's in there. But there is a political context here because 2026 is an election year for Attorney General Lolita James. So this extra rhetoric around protecting kids is, you know, not exactly surprising, right? If you're an AG and you want to be re-elected, you probably want to say, hey, New Yorkers, you know all that sketchy stuff that happens in the computer that you may not quite understand? I'm fighting against it. I'm standing up for you and your kids. That's obviously, you know, strong political messaging to put out to the masses. So a bit of that could be relevant here, and I don't think we should talk about this without acknowledging the incentives that exist all over the board. But to cut back to the case, here's the detail that I think matters the most here, at least on this issue. Steam's only protection against children entering the loot box economy is a single tick box asking if you're over 13. Now, for context, under 18s aren't permitted to be involved with licensed gambling in New York, and sports betting and casinos are meant to lock out under 21s. So, if this suit was to be won by New York, and Valve wanted to keep loot boxes as they are currently, then they would likely be required to get a gambling license, and thus restrict access to these gambling tools to any user under the age of 18. Now, you'd probably have to prove that those people are actually whatever age they say. Would that mean ID checks? Well, certainly, you're probably ID'd on your way into a casino or to do an online sports bet. And these questions matter because while this lawsuit is mostly about the state of New York wanting to regulate what they perceive as gambling on one of the largest online platforms, the way that they're selling it to the public is very much about protecting the citizens of the state, both old and young. And to do that, they've taken pages out of a fairly old playbook. The big difference between this in 2026 and the 2016 Washington example that we brought up earlier is that this story here is not a regulatory body making a polite request. It's a lawsuit from the AG's office of one of the biggest states in America. Now, the case could be thrown out, but the wheels are in motion for Valve to defend themselves and their loot boxes. If New York wins, Valve could simply lock down the state for users as they have done before with other territories. Or they could modify their loot boxes to get around the restrictions. But if one state gets a payday from one of gaming's largest companies, and in doing so shows a path to victory, a legal path to victory, then you can be damn sure other states will follow. So right now, everything comes down to one question. Does a judge decide that Valve's loot boxes are gambling? And this is going back to an old playbook for the state of New York. You see, the city banned pinball from 1942 to 1976, and partially because of pinball's links to organized crime, because organized crime were maintaining the pinball halls, and partially because it was a skillless gambling game that was corrupting the youth. Now, the ban only ended because the amusement industry fought back, and they fought back by hiring a pinball player named Roger Sharp, and they brought him before a New York City Council hearing with a damn pinball machine. And there he proved that pinball was in fact a game of skill, and he did that by calling out exactly where he would direct the ball and then executing his plan perfectly, thus showing that it's a game of skill. And that does matter here, because to the best of my knowledge, this is not a move that Valve will be able to do with their loot boxes. Maybe they can find a streamer with oddly good luck and try to pull that one off, but I don't think it'll be possible. That's because if you happen to call a case-hardened blue gem karambit as being the thing that'll appear in your next pull, and it actually is, you were just lucky. It's not a test of skill. Unless the test of skill is, I don't know, knowing what crate to open, which I don't think is really a test of skill. So honestly, this could be tough for Valve. And I want to know what you think. What do you consider to be gambling? And speaking of gambling, Discord are doing a big gamble in the future. Maybe gambit is the better word, but Discord and all their recent drama and headlines, that is them trying to jump before they're pushed in a way that allows them to basically influence the laws of the future. It's a hell of a story, it's goddamn fascinating, and you can learn about it next.